here. Here's doing something weird. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Margaret Bernard, and I'm a historical fiction and fantasy author. And I've got a book tag for you today. There are also going to be lots of props just so you're prepared. So it's a book tag, so it's about books, but I'm kind of going to hijack it. Just letting you know at the outset, I've got lots of things to say about Istanbul. All good. So that is what I'm going to have fun with today for this Istanbul Book Tag. If you've got questions about my experiences in Istanbul, please pop them in the chat, or about books, although my knowledge of the books about Istanbul is very much more limited. But feel free to ask questions. I just wanted to remind people it is the 20th of February, so we're getting up to the last week of February. The last week approaches. So if you've got any books on your list for the Black Author Tuber Readathon, head down to that spreadsheet and log them in so we can see your reviews. The last column on the right is a place for you to put in your video URL so that we can visit your channel, see your review, and go find those books if we want to read them. So we're just helping our Black author friends on the YouTubes. But for today, so what is the tag? What is this tag? So you may have heard that Jim likes this formula of making a city-linked tags. He went from the alphabet to cities, and I think he enjoys making tags and just posing questions for other people to answer. So this is a original tag, about a month old, by Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff. And unfortunately, he has to go to sleep because he's in Georgia right now. But he made up this Istanbul tag because he has been to Istanbul several times, lived there for a while, I believe, and so did I. So this is why I was particularly excited to jump on this tag bandwagon. And so I'll be sharing some of my props, some of my souvenirs, some of my photos of when I lived there. I taught English in Istanbul and just outside for a year in 2005, 2006. So time capsule time. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So Jim was here and let us know that it's midnight over there. And Anita was here to say hello. Uh-oh, my sound is funky. I've got some classical music on for the background. I can turn it off. We'll just do that. It's Allegro by Emmett Fenn, but apparently it's not working, so we'll just turn it off. That's fine. So the prompts that we have today. The first prompt for this tag is, Istanbul has many names. Which do you prefer? And the three typical names are Constantinople, Byzantium, and Istanbul. The one that came to mind for me that was a little more unusual is Stambul, Stamboul. And this is basically just a bastardization, a shortening of Istanbul in an English or Western sounding word. And that is what a lot of the Western European folks who came at the end of the 19th century and did the grand tour called it. And so I originally liked that name because it was Victorian, and it was like, I don't know, felt like being in an intellectual Victorian circle. However, as Jim knows, I started out on Booktube liking a lot of Victorian stuff, have participated in several Victobers now, and have sort of run out of new Victorian books to read that I like. So I'm just going to have to write more in the period. And yeah, fall back on historical fiction. There's still plenty of stuff that I can explore, but I'm never going to hit the same high as like Charlotte Bronte as a 15-year-old. I'm just not. So I have to accept that and move on. So Istanbul kind of has lost its varnish, and I'm just going to go with Istanbul. And the way I say it is specific. It's still anglicized, but I do put the dot on the capital I when I can on a keyboard because it is a different letter than an I with no dot in Turkish. So I want to make that clear and like write it appropriately for the language because I know better. So that's my first prompt. Yeah, that helped. Oh, good. And Anita has a fondness for Byzantium. It is a really fun word. To me, Byzantium seems like it should be like an elemental material from outer space. Byzantium. Like, no? I think so. Leslie is here. Hey, rainy Tuesday over here. Yes, I heard it is still raining in California. I hope you are near a boat, near a bucket, I guess. Yeah. Second prompt for Jim's tag is Orhan Pamuk won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2006. Have you read any books by an author because they had won the Nobel Prize for Literature? Funny enough, if you know me, I am the queen of books you've never heard of, and that is a Venn diagram. Well, there are a lot of Nobel books that people haven't heard of, but book prizes in general are just not my thing. I'm much more of a person to root for the underdog. So, like, books that haven't gotten praise and critical reception or are just like on the back of the shelf, in the backlist, in the mid list, whatever, they're not being loved enough. And so, Nobel Prize, other prizes as well, not really my go to. But when I was scraping the barrel looking for good reads for my prompts for May of the Moderns, I found Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. So he's a Japanese writer from the Moderns period, 1901 to 1945. And he wrote this book. It's very short. And I thought, okay, it works for May of the Moderns. It's a diverse voice because it's from another country, it's from Asia. Maybe this is a good one to incorporate and get out to people to read. So I read it and no. I didn't see the beauty. I was not impressed. I was bored. So I got through it. I came for the May of the Moderns period and I stayed for the Nobel Prize and I was disappointed. So that has not changed my behavior vis-a-vis prizes. So the third prompt, have you visited Istanbul? And yes. Why, yes, I have. And now we get to dive into my prompts, or not prompts, props. I'm already getting into the prompts. So this is the third one, and this is midway. So I'm going to say, hey, like the stream, subscribe if you're new. Thank you for being here. Yes. So 2005 to 2006 was my year in Istanbul. I've got some photos and I've got some prompts. So you saw the tulip-shaped tea glass. This is like what the tea looks like. It's sort of a reddish color. And usually it's piping hot. You get a little sugar in there and you tink, 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 tink with a tiny little spoon and you hold it at the top and your fingers get used to going numb with the heat very quickly so that you can drink your tea and you drink 100 cups of tea a day because everyone wants to offer you hospitality, which means a cup of tea. And so that was a part of the life there that I loved and I got used to. And biraz şeker, just a little sugar for me, please. One of my souvenirs is another liquid bearing container. And this is a sort of folklore hero in Turkey called Nasreddin Hoja. And so he's kind of like Aesop of Aesop's Fables, someone who is from the Ottoman Empire, as you can tell from the costume choices. But he was the person who was like a wise teacher, but would also pretend to be ignorant of something in order to prove a point. And so he would give out these moral lessons or funny jokes for the period. And so Nasreddin Hoja is like a folklore hero in Turkey. So that was pretty cool. This was my Bible when I was studying up to live there. This is the ye old Lonely Planet for Istanbul. I still have it. This is the only book that came up in my story graph with when I typed in Istanbul, which is kind of sad. And I have to say, I haven't really read a lot of books that were originally written in Turkish. I haven't read any that I know of. I'm sure I've read some of Orhan Pamuk and I didn't like it, so I didn't read a whole book. I think it was My Name Is Red that I was, like, perplexed by. It was a long time ago, so maybe I should give him another chance, but, what I did do, as you saw recently, is, like, get a cookbook from Istanbul, Scenes from the City Itself. This is called Yemek, Eating Recipes from Istanbul, and I've already cooked. Oh, I was gonna put up the pictures. Let's see. I have already cooked 2 things from, well, not from here, actually. Um, but one of them was really good, and I can share the picture here. If I can find, oh, it's not a Chrome tab, that's why. So, I was never a big fan of lentil soup, but when I got there, um, Mercimek çorbası, they have a version that has, like, sumac and lemon and mint, and it's phenomenal. Like, I could eat this every week. So, this is the first thing I made from this book that I was very excited about. I was going to make simit today, and then I was like, "I am not good at, like, raising doughs, so we're not gonna try this the day before I have to leave on an international trip." So, but this was a success. I loved it. It was delicious. Lentil soup the Turkish way is the only way that I roll with lentil soup, so that's good to know. Something else I learned about myself when I was there. And now for some pictures. Oh, props. I'll keep going with the props first, actually. So when I came back, um, Istanbul was still like an unusual place to have visited, I think, in 2005. So my mom was really learning about eBay at that time and liked getting me stuff that was Turkish from Istanbul, like this photo album that has hammered copper and the Hagia Sophia on the front. Look at that. Istanbul's up there in the corner. Very cool. I only did the photo corners for the first page and then sort of kept it in a different kind of folder, but it's very pretty and I still have it. The other item that came out of that is another hammered copper item, which they're pretty famous for. And this is like a tray. So like little leveled up from a tea tray. That's a TV tray, I should say. So you could serve tea on this. That's probably what it's made for, but you can put anything on it and move it around the house. I don't use it often because it's too pretty. But it does sit above my fridge and, like, reflect fond memories. That's something my mom got me after the experience. But, here's the fun parts. Okay, so photo time, photo album. This let's see how I can do the glare here. I guess I will just be taking these out. We lived, the teachers from the school, in a suburb of Istanbul called Bakırköy, and it was like 45 minutes. No, it was less than that. Like a 30-minute commuter train ride, and we lived in a building that was, like, furnished for teachers of the school right next to a mosque, and so what you can see there is the speaker system that was right outside our 6th floor window so that we could hear the muezzin bright and early. And so one of those bright and early times, we must have gotten a sunrise shot, which was pretty rare because you'd try to tune that out. um, let's see. There's the subway commuter train. There's like if you had to take a taxi, you went around this road and went under this awesome aqueduct, which is like amazing. Let's see, Taksim and Beyoğlu, like the popular places, and like little island excursions and horse and carriage rides. Just like a really beautiful place on the Mediterranean. You've got fishermen on the bridge, you've got I don't know, tourists and palaces on the riverside. It's just like really cool, full of history. Um I really liked the cistern. There was a lot of Roman history sort of below the level of the ground. And there's, I don't remember what it means, but Yerebatan Sarnıcı is the remains of an underground cistern that had all these carved passageways, and like that's where they would keep water cool and fresh and clean. Really, really cool. Here is one of the things that I never remember the name of, and it's really hard to describe to people. But as you can see, we were in the market. Here's where you can see the Turkish delight, which, you know, makes haters and lovers of half and half of us. But this is the thing that I can never remember what it's called. And basically, it's like grape must made into a sort of like sticky substance, and it goes around walnuts and it hangs on a string, kind of like you would dip taper candles. Um, and it was just like mildly sweet, crunchy, sort of healthy, and like I never find it anywhere else. Like I'll find Turkish delight some places, but never this treat. And this is the one that I'm like, I wish I could recreate this, but grape must, not my regular bag of tricks. We went and visited the old site of Truva, which is where Troy is supposedly happened, the wars of Troy in ancient times. My parents came to visit me, and we went on a cruise down to southern Turkey. Get pictures of some of my students. Like they were adult students who were working and came for evening classes outside of their jobs. And that was just really, really fun. We had office staff parties. Um, let's see. Yes, all the antiquities. Tavla, playing tavla at the board, like backgammon. Got pretty good at that. I even played a game, which is not my thing. And because there's a question about the Armenian genocide in a later prompt, there is a picture that's not about that, but about another sort of civil rights questionable thing. So around the founding of the modern Turkish state, when the Ottoman Empire crumbled and there was all these, there was the war, World War I, there was new Republican ideals, there was Ataturk. And one of the things that happened was that they wanted to be stable and have only Turks in the boundary of Turkey. So they sort of cut off the switching boundaries of what's Greece, what's Turkey, and said, okay, if you're a Greek family, you have to move. And if you're a Turkish family in now Greece, you have to move to Turkey. So what you had is a lot of people on islands that were sort of mixed in with each other had to just desert their homes, and sometimes they were just left empty. So that was a pretty affecting thing. And I know that's sort of population exchange, as it's euphemistically called, has gone on in other places too. But when I heard about that, that was the first time I'd ever imagined that would, I don't know, be an arrangement on that scale. So that was new to me. We're down in the Mediterranean, down by Antalya. Oh yeah, that was the year. That was the year there was an eclipse. So like we had to arrange to see the eclipse on the beach, and that was really cool. You know, like more of this Roman amphitheater, amazing ruins, and not ruins. I mean, they can still hold concerts and stuff today. So yeah, so that was that was sort of a setting experience in my life and affected a lot of what I thought about things and what I wanted to do with my life afterwards. So it is 2024. That is 19 years ago, which is crazy to think of, but yeah. Yeah, Leslie's saying yummy for those snacks in the bazaar. Yeah. Jim says, we have those grape strings in Georgia. They're called churkela. I don't know what it is in Turkish. That doesn't like start my memory, but I'm sure it's something close. It's so good. Yeah, so yes, I have visited Istanbul, and that is like my treasure trove, a little bit of the treasure trove of my memories. Quite a time in my life and influenced all subsequent decisions, really. So, prompt number 4. Have you read a book set wholly or partially in Istanbul? Or have you seen a film set in Istanbul? And I know when I went there, the Turks were very wary of people having watched terrible movies. I can't remember what it was. There was some like sort of flashy sex scandal movie where they were like, that's not really Turkey. And so I didn't ever try to watch, the classics, even, the Orient Express. I just, like, wasn't interested, but I did just see, Dia's version of this tag earlier today, novel Idea, and she mentioned The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova, and I was like, "Oh, I've read that book." I didn't remember that it was set partially in Istanbul, but I definitely have read that book, and it was really good. I remember, like, my heart pounding and turning the pages and, like, really being invested in this sort of a Dracula story. So, that's what I'll say. I definitely have read about Turkey in scholarly articles in grad school, um, but fiction, no, and nonfiction, travel writing. So, just sort of as part of other things. So, this is kinda disappointing. Sorry, guys. Question number 5, prompt number 5. Have you read a book that mentioned the Armenian Genocide? No, not that I recall, though I have heard it discussed in others' reading of books and in the news for sure, and during grad school when we were studying, development, courses, and I've even heard it on Booktube much more recently, so yes. And that is going to influence who I tag. There's not very many people who have not done this tag because it's 3 weeks and I'm always late on tags, but I have 2 people that I thought might do this. But books that I want to read. So I actually have a book that I got, 5 or more years ago, where I used to work. This came in as a used book. It's called Tea and Bees Milk, One Our Year in a Turkish Village, Karen and Ray Gilden or Gilden, which I don't know. I don't think they're Turkish with those first names. But yes, this was written the year before I went, and they were there before I was there. So I was very interested. I was in Istanbul, so I was in like the, heaving metropolis of the country, and they're talking about a Turkish village. And I did not get to visit very many villages. I sort of saw a little bit of that between the suburb where I was and the capital because we would go by sort of rural, not rural, smaller backwaters, um, and, visited a few places, stops when we were going down the coast, but I thought this would be good. So this is, well, something I wanna read. I just need to get around to it. And then there's 2 others that I have on my TBR, very loose TBR. One was recommended by Berna, my very good friend, a Turkish booktuber, Berna's Bookish Adventures, and that is The Pasha of Cuisine by Saygin Ersin. So I will pop that in here. She has a review of it, and she made it sound very mouth-watering indeed. So I just want to direct anyone who is curious or who wants to add, like maybe you're doing around the world type of reading challenge. This sounded really good. The Pasha of Cuisine, sort of mystery and action and intrigue, but also like food descriptions. Give me the food descriptions. So that I've just dropped into the chat. And whoops, what was the last one? I had a third. Oh boy. I've lost my window. Come back window. There we go. The third, oh yes. So there's sort of like a saga that is very well known. I did not recognize the title, but this description I remember hearing about before. It's by Ahmet Altan. It's called Like a Sword Wound. And here on tripfiction.com, which is a great book review site for different settings, Altan's Ottoman quartet spans the 50 years between the final decades of the 19th century and the post-World War I rise of Ataturk as both unchallenged leader and visionary former of the new Turkey. So we go through different people in different milieus of society and sort of what their choices are and what the struggles of the time are. So, like a Sword Wound by Ahmet Altan. They describe it as kind of like the Turkish War and Peace, and I'm like, well, I haven't read War and Peace, but end of the 19th century change in empire, like transitional social novel, sounds like right up my alley. So if anyone's interested in reading a huge empire saga with me, I'm sure we could find that one pretty easily. So those are my three like to be read. I would still like to read. And I'm going to tag two people, Jen of Remembered Reads, because she reads genocide books. And so she will probably have read more than one and be able to recommend the best on the Armenian Genocide in terms of getting to know all the factors surrounding it, maybe like the legacies of trauma, maybe like policies today that are still affected by it, politicians who refuse to, I don't know, like confront it. So all the interesting things. And I'm also tagging Hannah of Savage Reads because she reads great books and she lives on the other end of Europe. So she might appreciate, if she's in Spain, the other pillar of Hercules reading about Turkey, Istanbul. And maybe she has. So I'd love to hear. So there we go. There's my Istanbul tag, a walk down memory lane, and no books I've read, but some that I want to read. So, and tagging two people. So hopefully that was fun and that will help get Jim's tag out there until the next tag that I do, which is probably another month. What do people say? If you have invited me to your house and you have cooked food for me and I am your guest, I thank you by saying Ellerine Sağlık, which is health to your hands that have made this delightful feast. I wish I could keep up the Turkish, but that sort of vanished like the French does, and you need to use it or you lose it. What can I say? So thank you for joining me for this Istanbul book tag. Thank you, Jim, for tagging me. Thank you, Berna, for being a good Turkish friend and like keeping some of these little sparks alive. And again, Black Author Tuber Readathon winding up in this last week of February. So get on that spreadsheet. I will be gone for a week and come back for the March festivities, closing festivities. We're going to have a panel called The Thrilling Conclusion, because I'm sure that hasn't been used before, to the readathon. And we'll have some more Black authors as well as readers who participated. And we can just like talk books and readathons and author tube. So I will see you on March 2nd. And I will be plotting my vlog content from Scotland. So there we go. That's all the news that's fit to print. Take care. Happy reading, everybody. And I will see you again soon.